So when you're talking through an issue, these are some of the things you want to take into consideration. First of all, you want to use I statements instead of you statements. When you use I statements, you focus on telling them how it makes you feel or how you're affected by it, whatever the issue or problem is, versus their behavior or them. Because if you focus on their behavior or them, then it could look like you are blaming them or attacking them. And you don't want to do that, because when a person feels like they're being blamed or attacked, the outcome is not going to be what you would expect, because they're going to defend themselves or guard themselves. So you have to make sure that you're not blaming or attacking. Focus on the extended self. So you want to try to see things from the standpoint of your partner. You should do this in all situations. Just try to understand what's going on with the other person. Have some empathy. Try to see things from their vantage point. Focus on your partner's behavior and not them. Because if you focus on the behavior, now you're focusing on what it is that they're doing that's making things that they're doing or not doing that's causing you some challenges or difficulties. So, for example, sometimes when I talked about earlier, when people have destructive word talk, that you start naming or blaming or criticizing. If you focus on the behavior and not them, that makes it easier for them to be open to hearing what it is you have to say. When a person perceives that something's wrong with them versus something that they're doing, then that makes it more difficult for them to accept it. So if you're saying, so if something I can change, a behavior or action, then that's easier than saying something about my personality. Okay, so you're a slob, you don't care. That's different than saying, do you think we could figure out how to be a little bit more organized? Okay, you want to stay on the subject, and I said that before. Some of us just go all over the place. Well, what about this or what about that? And then you start bringing up things from the past and all that. So you want to stay on the subject. Don't bring up the past issues. Stay on that particular topic. Don't argue over facts. Facts have no bearing on this. Well, according to statistics, da 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 da. Really? That really does not. That's not going to. Because now it looks like you're trying to act like you're smarter than the other person, and so people are not going to respond well to that. Or if you make them feel like they're not smart and you are smart, you don't want to do that. Avoid statements like always and never. This is very important, because sometimes what happens in conversation, particularly if a person feels like it's about winning and losing, and that's one thing we want to talk about. It's not about winning or losing, because you want both people to be able to win. But you don't want to use words like always and never, because a person who's focused in that way will say, well, that's not true, right? It's not always, or it's not ever, never. So when you do that, then the conversation starts to go somewhere else versus staying with what you're trying to talk about, because they'll be like, well, now they want to have a conversation about the fact that you just said that they always do something or they never do something. And I remember having a couple where I was helping them to resolve an issue, and the wife said something like always and never, and he jumped all over that. And so because I knew what he was doing, and I was able to help them get through that as well. But she talked about how he would do that, and so he pounced on that versus focusing on what the real issue was and what they were there to discuss. Now, when you're talking and listening to an issue, what you want to do is listen for underlying issues, because quite often the issue that's really at hand is not really that you're talking about is not really the issue. A lot of times there's underlying or hidden issues that's really going on. For example, a wife might be having an issue with her husband, spending time out a lot, or not coming home, right after work or something like that, which is the topic of one of the couples that we're going to discuss here. But once you get to really figuring out what's going on, it really was an issue about wanting him to spend more time with her. And so if you really open up and really spend the time being open to really listen to what's going on, then you'll get at what the real issues are. And quite often they're not what you think it is, and it's what you're discussing at that moment. So when you're doing the TLC 3-step program, you want to rephrase your partner's thoughts and reflect your partner's feelings.